Dragon Age Inquisition was rated M for mature by the ESRB and contains blood, intense violence, nudity, sexual content, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, my name is Amaronith and I play games for the internet, and today we're playing Dragon Age Inquisition. It's time for another Codex entry reading, and we are starting with creatures. Bronto. There are only two things a noble will step aside for: paragons and angry Brontos. Dwarven saying. The dwarven shaperate originally bred this hulking beast as a beast of burden and food source, the rough equivalent of surface oxen and cows. Some versions of the Bronto have even been developed as dwarven mounts, valued more for sure-footedness and stamina than speed. While present in Orzammar in large numbers, some Brontos still exist in packs in the deep roads, having returned to a wild state after the fall of the dwarven kingdoms. They require remarkably little sustenance, absorbing nutrients from water, fungus, and even rocks, hence the rock liquor appellation many dwarves use to describe Brontos, and exist primarily in a dormant state until provoked. An angry, charging Bronto is considered a rather dangerous opponent. From Tales from Beneath the Earth by Brother Genitivi. Fear. Imagine, if you will, the most basic impulses possessed by mankind. Rage, hunger. Perhaps the most primal is fear. Even the youngest of us understands this concept, and the raw power of it drives almost all else. A demon that preys upon fear is not the most sophisticated sort of creature. They mimic forms they see in the nightmares of mortals, hoping to elicit the response they crave. Some of these demons, however, stumble upon terrors that are much more deeply rooted. Fears of the future, of chaos and disorder, of failure. This sort of demon develops a far more refined palate, attacking the psyche of their target rather than seeking a simple scare. Beware the fear demon that gorges upon the terror of not only a single nightmare, but of a nation, for it will grow to such a size that it dominates the Fade. From a lecture by renowned Templar Sir Hayward. I don't think I've read this one, but if I have, I'll edit it out, I guess. Gurgut. The chant of light claims that the Maker made us, and in our folly, we think ourselves blessed by such fact. If fact it is, for in my seeking, I find only base illusions, the better for being torn down and mocked as inadequate in the harsh light of reason. But as an exercise, let us say that it is true, that the Maker made us. I have seen the Gurgut basking in a slanted shaft of sunlight in the penumbral canyon, its putrescent tongue scenting the rancid air of the nameless and unnameable swamp, swishing the uncaring grass of the plains with its passage. It is some cousin of the wyvern, but bereft of the savage ferocity for which the latter is praised and hunted by Orlesian nobles. Its thick-lidded eyes stare witlessly, and its jaw hangs agape. It is not befuddled or frustrated by its want of reason, but perfectly content, a drooling idiot. Its pallid belly stretches and distends, disdaining all reason when it gorges itself upon its prey. I have seen such a lowly beast swallow a chevalier whole, the great and shining warrior taken by surprise in the tall grass, his silverite armor gleaming as the Gurgut unhinged its jaw to draw the chevalier in. Across its belly I saw the kicks and struggles grow frenzied, and then still, and the idiot beast settled into a happy torpor. The ruined armor of the noble chevalier lay among the Gurgut's spoor several days later. Say that it is true that the Maker made us. What if he made us for food? What if the grand purpose of our searching existence is to stretch the belly of a beast that slinks through the tall grass? What if there is a single unbending purpose, and in it we are cattle to feed the witless leviathans that slumber unseen beneath us? From An Anatomy of Terrible Beasts, by Baron Havard Pierre d'Armortissan. Master makes us check behind him for Gurguts at all times. He also carries a very sharp stick. Footnote in the margins of the manuscript by the Baron's scribe, Dunwich. Tales. This doesn't seem familiar, and if I've read it, I'll just edit this out. Battleground State. It seems a bitter twist of fate to discover that half of Thedas does not consider my homeland a nation at all. Canary maps depict the island as part of their territory, without any ambiguousness to the claim. I can only assume this is because all islands within the Boreac Ocean naturally fall under their jurisdiction. The Tevinter maps, meanwhile, still proudly show the entire island as part of the Imperium, even though Imperial control outside of small pockets is little more than fiction, and changes whenever the Canary return their attention to the area. Imperial reports speak of fog warriors, as if we are beasts, little better than darkspawn or dragons, dangerous element of the wilderness, best avoided or eliminated, but ultimately of no consequence. It angers me to read these things. Ours is a land that has been shaped by war as no other. Long ago the Imperium came, and after centuries of trying and failing to turn us into compliant Imperial citizens, the Canary came instead. They conquered Saharan and attempted to convert us. Neither side succeeded in taking our freedom. And though battle after bloody battle has ground our ancient halls of wisdom practically to dust, we still dream of the land that was. The fog dancers who travel with each band of warriors regale them with the legends of old, and keep the songs of our people alive. They say that the griffins of the Grey Wardens came from Saharan. They tell us of the ancient curse of Nahar that brought the fog, and the promise that will one day lift it. They speak of the March of Four Winds, of the lost people who fled to the northern islands, and the great heroes who learned at the feet of the elves. Are the old tales true? We may never know. All that remains of the land Saharan once was is gone, but I know we will make them true someday. From A Land of Fog, by Brother Ashorvel. I know there are constellations here that I haven't read. I just don't remember which ones they are. Love that for me. So I'm going to read whichever ones don't feel familiar, and I'll edit out the ones that are doubles, or I'll just leave them in and mark them as such in the description box below. Constellation, Eluvia. Owing primarily to the popular Orlesian tale of the same name, the constellation Eluvia is commonly referred to as Sacrifice. During the Glory Age, folklore told of a young woman saved from a lustful mage by being sent into the sky by her father, after which the mage killed him, hence the sacrifice. The daughter became the constellation, depicted as a seated woman with her head in the clouds. Prior to this tale, Eluvia was thought to represent Razikael, the Tevinter old god of mystery, and the constellation was the source of many superstitions involving the granting of wishes. From A Study of Theodosian Astronomy by Sister Oren Petrarchius. Constellation Equinor. Referred to as the stallion in common parlance, the constellation Equinor has historically been depicted either as a rearing horse or a seated griffin. Some scholars speculate that the constellation's original image was that of a hala, which could indicate a deliberate supplantation of the constellation's original representation as Gillanane, the elven goddess also known as Mother of the Hala. However, as horses had great significance to early Neurominian culture, from which the ancient Imperium descended, this speculation is largely considered unfounded. From A Study of Theodosian Astronomy by Sister Orin Patriarchus. Constellation Silentir. Referred to as Silence in the common parlance, the constellation Silentir is historically attributed to Dumat, the old god of silence, and leader of the ancient Tevinter pantheon. The depiction of the constellation, however, is often debated. Some depict a dragon in flight, while others, also the most common modern depictions, show a man carrying a horn and a wand. Some scholars believe these represented scales, which would point to this constellation being a supplantation of the elven mythal, but nothing indicates this to be more than speculation. From A Study of Theodosian Astronomy by Sister Orin Patriarchus. Constellation Solium. There are two common interpretations regarding the history behind the constellation Solium, commonly referred to as the Sun. The first is that it represents the fascination of early peoples, such as the Neuromenians, predecessors to the ancient Tevinter Imperium, with all objects in the sky, the sun and moon in particular. Indeed, many believe proper depiction of Solium is as both. The second interpretation is that this constellation originally represented Elgirnan, the head of the elven pantheon, who was also known as the eldest of the sun. Modern scholars do not know which, if either, is truth. From A Study of Theodosian Astronomy by Sister Orin Patriarchus. Hightown, Chapter 9, by Varric Tethras. Donan Branicovic was running out of leads to chase. He only had 2 weeks left until retirement, just 2 weeks to find the man who'd murdered a magistrate and a Hightown nobleman, if Captain Hendelin didn't kick him from the ranks first. The docks stank of piss and rotting fish, as foul as the men and women who worked there. But that was where Donan had to go to find the raider captain Belladonna, who had broken into the Comte de Faver's home. The Dragon's Jewels was a big boat. She liked big boats. The pointy bits towered majestically over the water. That roundish wooden part seemed like it could crush armadas beneath its wood. It was the greatest boat in the history of boats. But even from the dock, Donan knew something was wrong. He ran up the gangplank to find a dead sailor on the deck and a blood trail leading down into the hold. Donan drew his sword and followed. His eyes still hadn't adjusted to the dimness of the lower decks when he tripped over a second dead sailor, stabbed in the gut, and left where he'd fallen. The body was still warm. The ship creaked with every swell of the waves. Donan held his breath and crept deeper into the hold. He barely deflected the blade in time. Steel rang against steel. Donan parried a second blow, still half blind in the low light. The third swing got past his guard and left a wicked slash in his forearm. "Nobody attacks my crew, you flaming pile of dog shit!" the attacker swore, and Donan recognized her voice. "Hold, Kirkwall City Guard!" he shouted, barely bringing his blade up in time. "You again!" Donan's eyes finally began to adjust, and he could make out Captain Belladonna. She was clutching her ribs with her right hand, a dagger in her left, and was covered in enough blood that Donan was sure it wasn't all hers. She glowered at him. "Could have used a guard not 5 minutes ago. Useless as ever." She grudgingly lowered her weapon. Donan sheathed his sword. "Who did this?" "Don't know. Didn't care to ask," she sniffed. "Bastard killed 2 of my men before I cut off his hand and he bolted." She waved indifferently toward the rear of the hold. "It's over there somewhere." "Did he take the Comte shipment?" Donan asked. "No. If that's what this is about, you can have it." She limped over to a trunk and removed a bundle of cloth tied with twine. She threw it at Donan's feet. "Good riddance." Sexuality in Thedas. What I find most interesting is that, despite the lack of open discussion on matters of human sexuality, there is commonality to be found on the subject in all Andrastian lands. Typically, one's sexual habits are considered natural and separate from matters of procreation, and only among the nobility, where procreation involves issues of inheritance and the union of powerful families, is it considered of vital importance. Yet even there, a noble who has done their duty to their family might be allowed to pursue their own sexual interests without raising eyebrows. The view on indulging lusts with a member of the same gender varies from land to land. In Orlais, it is considered a quirk of character and nothing more. In Ferelden, it is a matter of scandal if done indiscreetly, but otherwise nothing noteworthy. In Tevinter, it is considered selfish and deviant behavior among nobles, but actively encouraged with favored slaves. Nowhere is it forbidden, and sex of any kind is only considered worthy of judgment when taken to awful excess or performed in the public eye. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. Vallasdahlen. Elves have their heroes, just as we do. They honor the Vallasdahlen, life trees, of these legendary figures. Planted in remembrance of those who dedicated their lives to the Dalish kingdom, these trees grew into a mighty wood, a testament to the elves' force at their height. Walk beneath the Vallasdahlen with reverence. Remember that each of them once had a name. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. The Dalish believe Mathalin was the first of the Emerald Knights, and the first to hold Equinor, the Blade of Honor, forged in Halam Shiral for his hand. Tanaleth was a smith, and the High Keeper of June. She spent her years rediscovering the arts of Arlathan. Briathos protected the Dales from human incursion. When humans sent missionaries and Templars, he turned them away. Vaharel conquered the human city of Montsamard. Nendirane was the last to hold the blade Equinor. With her fell the Dales. The sword was lost. Dalish revere Elnora for her tireless work reviving the magical arts of lost Arlathan. Ralafarin was a great lord of Elven Halam Shiral. The Ralafarin tribe existing today believes they descend from him. Kalmar was Eleonora's apprentice and first, and a friend to the Hala. Sulan was Mathalin's squire. He walked always with a wolf at his side. And that is that. Whew. Oof. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Be safe. And I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye-bye.